Mr. Sousa, I will start off with you because your party was the first out of the gate yesterday to make that announcement on the tax cut. It is estimated to cost federal coffers $6 billion. Your leader today, Mr. Carney, criticized Pierre Poilievre for even broadly indicating that he would cut other things to pay for that. But your party hasn't identified anything outside of capping the public service that would pay for this tax cut. You've talked about accelerating defense spending and balancing a budget in 3 years. Help us with the math on that, and what would you cut specifically?
And let's be clear that the Conservatives, what they're doing always comes with a catch. They've already made clear that whatever they cut, whatever they spend, they will then have offsetting cuts. And obviously their proposal is even more reckless in respect to what they've done in the past, because dental care, child care, pharmacare, all of that equates to very much the things that they said they would cut in the past, and that is pretty much their resolve in respect to what they're proposing here. But economic growth, national unity, improving our competitiveness, to strengthen our economy, to sustain those very programs is critical. And we are strong as a G7 nation. We can be stronger more. We can be stronger still by promoting some of that unity and promoting our competitiveness. And that's where we get that sustainability to support these programs.
I have to follow up because a couple of things. You said the Conservatives' proposal was even more reckless. First of all, I have to ask you, does that mean that the proposal that you're making is reckless? Dental care, no, they have talked about not being in favor of. Child care, however, they have not said unequivocally that they would cut that. And the other things that you mentioned, I mean, you're kind of putting words in their mouths. And my question was not, I will pose those questions to your Conservative colleague in a moment. My question was to you. What are the Liberals going to do to pay for a $6 billion annual tax cut?
And as I said, and as Mark Carney has said over the course of this few weeks now, we have to have a stronger economy. We have to have one Canada, not 13 separate jurisdictions, to improve our competitiveness, to expand our trade routes to other parts of the world, to strengthen our economy further, to sustain the very programs that are important to Canadians. Canadians care about the dental care program. They care about child care. They care about pharmacare. They care about ensuring that we strengthen our economy. And that's exactly what we're proposing. And people want more money in their pockets. And through this middle income tax cut, it supports them in that endeavor as well.
So is some sort of mythical economic growth going to lead to that? Because I don't see a single private sector economist forecasting that be the case given the tariff threat.
I've done this. I've done this in the past. I have had an opportunity of doing 6 budgets, one that I repeated twice, and enabling us to have economic growth. We were able to increase our program spending. We were able to support many Canadians through that process. I provided for national unity measures by having only one securities regulator to improve our competitiveness while enhancing CPP across Canada. We need to do more of that. And when we increased our economic growth, we were able to sustain our program spending and balance the books at the same time. We can make this happen provided we stay united. And the opposition, they only care about maintaining that divisiveness, and anger is not solutions, and slogans certainly are not solutions. We have to have a concrete plan putting forward that we are proposing in this in these programs.
There's one budget that's being
okay,
balanced.
And we'll circle back to that point around economic growth, because I take your point about your experience, but I, again, don't know of any private sector economist that is forecasting vis-a-vis Donald Trump. We're all of a sudden going to see, booming economic growth in this country. Mr. Barrett, I do want to ask you about what you're proposing, because it is even bigger in both the size of the tax cut, but also foregone revenue. When fully implemented, it'll be about $14 billion. Your leader today said that you would cut the bureaucracy and foreign aid. By how much?
Look, let's talk about why we have to do this, why we need this middle class tax cut. It's all about bringing it home. We need working Canadians to be able to take home more of what they're earning. After the last 10 years, we've seen that it's harder and harder for them to get ahead. The Liberals in 2015, they promised to cut taxes. Now 80% of Canadians pay more tax than they did 10 years ago. They're paying $10,000 more per year in taxes than they were. And so that's why it's so important. They're going to pay $800 more this year for groceries than they did last year. Our tax cut is about putting $900 back in the pocket of the average working Canadian, or $1,800 for a family. That's going to make a real difference for them. And so the things that we're going to cut are the Liberal insider waste and corruption that we've seen explode over the last 9 years with the Carney-Trudeau Liberals. When you look at the management consulting that we've seen in Ottawa, more than doubling to between 18 and $20 billion per year. And this is where the money's coming from for things like their green slush fund that saw $400 million identified by Canada's Auditor General as being, inappropriately handled, misappropriated funds, with the Liberal-appointed chair being found guilty of breaking the Conflict of Interest Act, or the $60 million Arrive scam, $20 million going to a pair of guys who didn't even do any work on the app. So it's when you look at the record of the Carney-Trudeau Liberals, it's very easy to quickly identify areas like this where we're going to be able to exact the savings that we need.
With great respect, we're talking about a $14 billion annual cost. You're referencing $450 million the Auditor General has identified.
Do you know
that every bit of outsourcing in this government, do you have evidence to the idea that it is all wasteful spending? Because under the previous Harper government, there was also spending on outsourcing. It is a function, perhaps not at this level, but it is a function of government. And when you talk about cutting foreign aid, again, are you wiping out all $7 billion of foreign aid, or will you keep $1.5 billion that assists refugees like those from Ukraine just for being here in Canada?
Look, when you have the doubling of management consulting, but we don't see an improvement in the services that Canadians are receiving, my constituents aren't getting passports any faster. In fact, it took them even longer to get the services that they used to get at half the cost than they see now with the Liberals. So you can, at a minimum, cut that management consulting in half. But
that's only $10 billion versus $14 billion annually.
On foreign aid, we've said that when we've got money that's going and supporting dictatorships, and money that's not actually going to help the intended the folks that are intended to receive it, that's what we're going to target. So we're going to have to review. But what if there's
none of that? Well, what if all $7 billion is helping out genuine causes? Like, what are you going to cut?
Well, I think that I think that Pierre Poilievre has identified some areas already. And the other thing, Vashi, is that you can expect from us, now that we're into a campaign, is a fully costed platform for all of these commitments. And I think that Canadians are going to be refreshed by the idea that they're going to see their taxes go down, but not see the inflationary deficits that we've seen with the Carney-Trudeau Liberals.
Well, I have questions about the plausibility of that, and I look forward to the full costing, because I think both you and the Liberals said at some point that will be coming during this campaign. Mr. Sauvé, I do want to ask about the promise that your party made today and the realistic or lack thereof nature of it. You're making a promise for what will happen in a decade, but the CMHC has said 3.5 million new homes are needed by 2030 to restore affordability. What does this promise for something that comes to fruition in a decade actually do to help Canadians today?
Well, we can tell you that when you're talking to people and door to door in the streets, their main worries is housing. When I see the Liberals and the Conservatives talking about tax cuts, and it seems like they're having the same exact campaign, but we're talking about those issues that are so fundamental to the people in our ridings. In Verdun, LaSalle, Villemard, where I'm knocking doors, people are worried about rental prices. They're worried about their prices going up. They're worried about being evicted. You hear it in almost every door. Seniors, students. So what we're saying is that there's a lot of actual federal land available today that we can build nonprofit housing. And nonprofit housing is the only way we're going to actually reduce the cost of housing. Because what we're talking about, the supply side economics that these other two parties are talking about, these are talking about delaying the rise in the cost of housing, but it's not going to fix the actual cost of housing. It's not going to bring it down. But when we're talking about nonprofit housing, exactly what the NDP is proposing today, that's how we're going to bring down housing prices. And it's concrete and it's long term. If you look at the OECD average in terms of how much non-market housing is available in countries that are OECD, there are twice as many houses as what we have in Canada. That's 7% to Canada's only 3.5%. So we actually have to do a heck of a lot of work to bring housing affordability to Canadians, and we have to start today. Today, where we started our campaign was where we started it 4 years ago as well. We asked the Liberal government to open up Canadian federal held land for nonprofit housing, and nothing's been done over 4 years. We want to see action, and you have to start today in order to truly bring together housing affordability for all Canadians.
And I do understand the point you're making, but I would point out there was in budget 2024 a pretty specific promise about opening up Crown lands, pardon me. And second, I do have to follow up on the original line of questioning, which is as you do knock on those doors, for example, in LaSalle or Verdun, and they tell you they have a problem right now with paying rent, what does housing 10 years from now do for them?
Our plan is from now, we're starting as soon as we form government. Until 10 years, we want to build the homes. We want to build all these hundreds of thousands of social housing developments. And what the federal Liberals have done is it opened up federal public lands for private profiteers. That's exactly what they've done. So obviously,
but what if that gets it done sooner?
But again, new construction, if you look on the market, it's always more expensive. That's what's available on the market because new countertops, everything's new. So it's not going to bring down pricing in the immediate sense. This supply side economics will only reduce the rise in the reduce the speed in which housing costs go up, but it won't solve housing costs and it won't bring them down long term. The NDP's plan is the only one that's calling to actually bring down housing prices with non-market solutions. That's what distinguishes us from these two other parties that seem to have the exact same logic.
Okay, I got to do one. I have time for one quick round, 1 point for each of you. Mr. Sousa, I wanted to ask you just in general. It seems the way that Mr. Carney is presenting a lot of this, even what you were saying today, is a little bit of a concession that the government you were a part of for a number of years overspent. Why should anyone trust a Liberal government going forward not to continue overspending?
Yep, exactly.
Mark Carney has proven himself time and time again to navigate through these kind of storms. And when I was involved after the 2008 recession, we had critical issues to overcome. We had to manage our expenses. We had to promote economic growth and stimulate growth by, in this case, investing heavily in infrastructure, things that enable us to be more competitive. Mark Carney is doing the same right now in terms of a national unity agenda to try to ensure that all the provinces are working collaboratively together quickly to overcome the challenges that are before us, to ensure that we strengthen our sovereignty, to protect our Arctic, to ensure that we have greater trade routes across the other parts of the world, to lessen our reliance on the United States. We certainly have to deal with the United States very carefully because we are their greatest partner and their biggest trade. All these things have to be taken into consideration. Unlike what I'm worried about in terms of slogans or in terms of looking at measures that are dividing the country, we got to stay united. And I have full faith in Mark Carney, having proven time and time again to get over these hurdles to ensure that we meet the challenge and succeed.
Lunatic.
He's done that, and we can. As Canada, we can do so as we go forward, even stronger than before.
Just really quickly, is there any reason? So is it just Mark Carney? That's the difference. That's why Canadians should all of a sudden feel that 10 years of deficit spending will come to an end.
We have a strong number of individuals that are working very, very hard to protect Canada's interests, and we are taking a number of steps with the team. And Team Canada is doing its part, and a number of others that are part of the group have taken initiatives that I don't believe the Conservatives or the NDP have the depth by which to do so. And this is critical. Canadians have a choice. You see before you a number of individuals that have had proven experience in dealing with these matters in the past, and they can continue to provide for Canada. Talking about the economy is about people. It's not just about the numbers. And for some, it's only a matter of what can we cut to try to get to a certain threshold. It's not about the cuts. It's about the investments that we can do to try to succeed in enabling us to sustain the programs that are important to them. This is what we are doing as the Liberal Party of Canada.
Mr. Barrett, I want to turn over to you and give you and Mr. Sauvé a word on all of this. And I did want to jump off what Mr. Sousa is saying insofar as, look, tax cuts will help a lot of Canadians, but other programs like dental care, the Canada Child Benefit, particularly help the lowest income Canadians. Why are you not more concerned about them?
Take a look at what the Conservative record is in introducing a program like the Universal Child Care Benefit, which was the
but not means tested, right? In the same way that this one is.
Which was the the first program of that type, and that's something that that we've said we'd support. There can be a fiction spun by the Liberals, but let's take a look at what the costed platforms are when they come out. We know that the Liberals' plans for the books to balance themselves saw our national debt double. We see deficits that have just driven up inflation and absolutely crushed the power of the paychecks that Canadians have. And they've put us in a position of weakness when we're dealing with these threats from the United States. Our plan is to put Canada first and to actually harness the power of our natural resources, for example, and get our clean, ethical natural resources to market and to diversify our trade so that Canadians will have that prosperity that really has been left in the ground over the last 9 years.
It sounds like you're kind of banking on economic growth, this mythical economic growth to save your budget as well. In that costing, will you detail exactly what programs you'll keep and cut?
Absolutely. Okay. You can count on Conservatives actually prioritizing working Canadians. They've been left behind by these Liberals. Just take a look at the food bank use in this country, which has doubled after 9 years of the Carney-Trudeau Liberals. We have people choosing between heating and eating. Their carbon tax left people freezing in the dark and unable to put gas in their truck to get to work. This is something all the while you have Mark Carney, who's pumping.
He got rid of it.
No, to be clear.
He zeroed it.
Yeah, to be clear, Mark Carney did not remove the carbon tax, and he said he's going to raise the carbon tax on which is going to be passed on to consumers just like the carbon tax. But what's Mark Carney done overseas is he's invested heavily in coal, telling Canadians that they can't drive their car to work. Meanwhile, he's making money off coal in other countries, investing in pipelines in other countries. You just can't take these guys seriously. When Mark Carney doesn't need Canadians' votes, but he does need their money, you can guarantee he's going to raise that carbon tax.
I'm already going heavy. We will reconvene to discuss the merits of each leadership candidate. I promise.